Hello, this is Benjamin Foster. I am a managing associate at ScottMadden. ScottMadden launched a supply chain learning series in conjunction with SSON. During the next quarter, this series will pinpoint specific topics related to leading practice supply chain organizations. Topic number 1 will highlight the key characteristics of the enterprise supply chain. We will start out with a brief overview of ScottMadden's supply chain expertise. Then, we will discuss the key components of the enterprise supply chain, which will include a high-level definition, a review of the supply chain performance gap, and a deeper dive into planning and forecasting, strategic sourcing, procurement, logistics, materials management, and accounts payable. Next, we will review the benefits of implementing leading practices within the supply chain, and wrap up with an overview of the future supply chain topics included in the supply chain learning series. At ScottMadden, our teams have deep cross-functional expertise within finance and accounting, human resources, information technology, and supply chain. We leverage our supply chain expertise to assist clients with developing strategies to improve operations and increase the value delivered to customers. We are actively involved in all aspects of supply chain operations. We help clients develop supply chain operating models, organization structures, and staffing designs. We conduct diagnostic assessments to help clients evaluate their current supply chain operations and identify improvement opportunities. We help clients streamline or re-engineer the entire procure-to-pay process, including warehousing and materials management. We assist clients with analyzing enterprise-wide spend. Based upon the results of the analysis, we help design and implement sourcing waves to significantly reduce current and future spend without sacrificing operating performance. Within warehouse and inventory management, we help clients optimize the acquisition, receipt, storage, and issuance of maintenance, repair, and operating inventory. We also provide system support by assisting clients with implementing supply chain management point solutions, as well as enterprise-wide ERP supply chain modules. The Institute for Supply Management defines supply chain as the identification, acquisition, access, positioning, and management of resources and related capabilities the organization needs or potentially needs in the attainment of its strategic objectives. At ScottMadden, we define supply chain as planning for, acquiring, moving, and managing goods and services in a manner that meets business objectives. The picture of supply chain shown is representative of things produced rather than services rendered, which are much simpler. Supply chain is essentially a network of suppliers and customers throughout the areas listed. Logistics and materials management can be viewed as the backbone in which goods are moved from their original source through the manufacturing and distribution process, ultimately to end users. There is a well-established disconnect between the degree executives view supply chain's importance and the success supply chains have demonstrated within the enterprise. The disconnect is largely due to supply chain's transactional origins. Supply chain organizations must focus on the areas in which the organization can extract the most value. A shared services solution is one opportunity to address the supply chain performance gap. Supply chain, delivered as a shared service, facilitates cost reductions through standardization and economies of scale while ensuring alignment with the business through a customer-focused, metric-driven delivery model. We have characterized supply chain into the 6 functions shown in the graphic. The 6 functional areas are representative of supply chains for things produced. The supply chain for services does not include logistics and materials management. Leading practice supply chains have evolved from a functional silo approach in the 1980s to a more integrated model today, which leverages standardization and process collaboration to align the appropriate skills with the degree of complexity for a particular purchase. Organizations that are only focused on one aspect of the supply chain fail to see beyond the department level to the end user. Decisions are made to achieve functional optimum solutions without regard to the impact on the other supply chain functions and the enterprise as a whole. Reverse logistics, or the process for handling returns from customers and returns to suppliers, is an important aspect of the supply chain that must be included in an integrated model. Now, we will take a deeper dive into each of the 6 major supply chain functions. Planning and forecasting helps businesses more intelligently deploy resources to meet unplanned and planned demand without excessive inventories or logistics costs. To plan and forecast for future demand, past demand is tracked and identified as either unplanned or planned. Then, unplanned demand is analyzed to understand its properties, and mathematical models are used to forecast future unplanned demand. Planning must incorporate the uncertainty of unplanned demand into the forecast. Planned demand, on the other hand, is derived from operational procedures and plans. The more closely operational practices match plans, the more accurate the forecast for planned demand. A company can never be a top supply chain performer without successfully forecasting and planning for future demand. Strategic sourcing is a disciplined, proven methodology consistently applied across the supply chain organization to reduce the cost and improve the value of procured goods and services. It can best be described as a chain of analyses, strategies, and decisions. The first link in the chain is conducting a spend analysis to better understand current spend and identify future trends and cost drivers. Next, supplier and market research should be conducted to evaluate market forces that may impact supply chain decisions. Organizations may employ one of several sourcing strategies to maximize cost savings. The competitive process includes RFP development and vendor evaluation and selection. Following vendor selection, contract negotiations should be executed to finalize pricing. Lastly, continuous improvement allows the supply chain organization to effectively manage relationships with suppliers. A successful strategic sourcing program requires the right knowledge and a disciplined approach. To effectively conduct the spend analysis and market analysis, supply chain resources must have a firm understanding of the supplier base, contracting practices, user requirements, technical specifications, supplier performance, and market or category specifics. The spend and market analyses allow the supply chain organization to determine the best strategy for driving down cost. Typical savings from a well-executed strategic sourcing strategy range between 3% and 5% of total spend. Now, we will review the procurement function within the enterprise supply chain. Procurement serves as the primary processing area for the acquisition of materials and services. It is also a key interface between customers and suppliers. Supplier setup, purchase order generation, and quotations include the establishment of suppliers and purchasing systems, the review and release of orders against established contracts, the development of purchase orders for discrete, one-time purchases, and the response to customer requests for information. Procurement activities are characterized as being highly transactional and driven by technology automation with few variations in the overall process. These characteristics make procurement a strong candidate for shared services. Effective order management allows the procurement function to meet the customer's expectations with the appropriate amount of effort and expense. Procurement personnel must be able to coordinate with suppliers, transportation, import, and inspection providers to expedite deliveries when necessary or correspond with customers when inquiries arise. Additionally, as a key interface with customers and suppliers, procurement personnel can have a significant impact on customer satisfaction and the overall impression of supply chain performance. Logistics connects all key points in the supply chain, from raw materials producers to finished goods suppliers to end users. For asset-intensive companies, logistics can represent a significant expense category. Improving performance within logistics also represents a major cost savings opportunity. Two major areas within logistics are transportation and reverse logistics. Reverse logistics, also known as investment recovery, includes returns from customers and returns to suppliers. Transportation management and optimization seeks to cost-effectively deliver products on time and undamaged. In order to do this successfully, companies need to have a comprehensive and detailed view of their transportation activities. Accurate data is critical. Key transportation activities include transportation mode and route optimization, transportation vendor negotiation, contracting, and performance management. Transportation vendor performance management includes monitoring on-time delivery, quality shipments, and overall cost. Reverse logistics is a programmatic approach to identify, reuse, return, sell, or otherwise dispose of surplus, obsolete, or damaged assets generated by an enterprise as it pursues its primary business. Items returned from customers must be evaluated and the appropriate disposition must be determined. After the disposition method is determined, the supply chain organization must coordinate the disposition of the item with the appropriate parties. At the end of the reverse supply chain flow, payments and credits must be completed, and the appropriate systems adjusted to account for the return. Next, we will discuss the materials management function. Supply chain's role as an enabler of business strategy is easy to see in materials management, which includes responsibilities like inventory planning and management, warehouse or distribution center number and location, and internal warehouse operations. Materials management is responsible for what is often one of a company's largest assets, the inventory. Companies that are able to implement leading materials management practices within their supply chain organizations improve performance and realize significant cost savings. The first step in the inventory planning and management process is determining the demand forecast for material. Next, stocking decisions are made and service levels are established. Service level requirements drive reorder points, which we will discuss in greater detail in a few moments. After service levels are established, order quantities are determined to minimize operational costs. As demand for products changes over time, supply chain organizations must reclassify inventory to account for the change in demand. Accurate inventory data is key to achieving desired service levels, so inventory must be accounted for and controlled. The illustration shows the relationship between the available on-hand inventory over time. When the amount of on-hand inventory falls below the reorder point, a purchase order is generated to replenish the inventory. The reorder point is set to allow enough time for the supplier to deliver the material to the warehouse. Safety stock levels, which provide the buffer against demand variability, are set using calculations based upon the demand forecast, demand variability, and a desired service level. Inventory management applications assist materials management personnel with determining reorder points, safety stock levels, and purchase quantities. Most applications also assist materials management personnel with determining demand and evaluating lead times. Inventory optimization is about having the right materials in the right quantities, at the right place, at the right time, for the right price. Improving inventory management requires participation of many stakeholders with clear decision rights. Leading practice supply chain organizations allow business units to provide the requirements for the amount of material needed, the timing of when the material is needed, and the location of where the material is needed. These strategic sourcing and procurement functions take the input from the business units to determine which suppliers to use and decide how much to pay for the material. Materials management is responsible for making sure the material is received, issued, and maintained effectively. Lastly, inventory management must ensure material is available to meet the business unit requirements. The last function of the supply chain that we will cover today is accounts payable, AP. Supply chain processes must be effective for AP to perform at a high level. AP's performance has a significant impact on a company's relationship with suppliers. There are several factors that determine whether the relationship between supply chain and AP works well. First, supply chain organizations must ensure purchase orders reflect end user requirements and are clear to suppliers. Next, the supply chain organization must work with AP to ensure supplier shipments and invoices match the original purchase order. Supply chain organizations must also confirm the materials delivered to end users and the confirmation sent to AP accurately reflect what was included in the shipment from the supplier. Lastly, AP must ensure payments match the purchase order, invoice, and confirmation to end users. We have reviewed the 6 major functions within the enterprise supply chain. Now, we will examine some of the benefits of implementing leading practices. Pursuing supply chain excellence matters. Top supply chain performers utilize leading practices to improve performance and save cost. They document key performance indicators and use the indicators to evaluate performance and improve integrated operations. Leading supply chain organizations standardize processes to ensure consistency, centralize the procurement and payables organization to leverage economies of scale, and automate purchase order processing to improve cycle times. Lastly, leading supply chain organizations take the necessary steps to optimize the supplier base and inventory levels. The magnitude of utilizing leading practices to improve performance in several different supply chain areas is shown in the table. A review of the enterprise supply chain is the first topic in the supply chain learning series. The next topic, how procure-to-pay fits within an enterprise supply chain, will focus on the key attributes of a successful P2P transformation and the role technology plays in enabling the capture of synergies and savings associated with P2P in a shared services delivery model. Topic 3, Supply Chain Governance, will explore the key building blocks of effective supply chain governance models. We will also present methods to create alignment across an enterprise for a consistent supply chain strategy that clearly differentiates transactional efficiency from higher value strategic activities. That concludes the presentation on the enterprise supply chain. For further information or questions, please feel free to contact ScottMadden and look for us at www.scottmadden.com.